Hey, so I'm kind of hiding out in my bedroom back here to make a little video. It's a video I've been wanting to make for a while. Kind of wanted to talk about our experience with Jason's glioblastoma or brain cancer diagnosis, or his experience with his symptoms. And the reason I wanted to do this is because it was a shock. It's something that we never seen coming, and which I know it's kind of funny to say that, but the reason I say it is because when I go back and look at it, and I worry, I feel a little guilt of what could I have done different, what could I have looked for, could there have been a sign that I just didn't catch, kind of thing. And I even went back and checked and Googled again before I did this video just to make sure that my memory was correct. But yeah, Jason's symptoms, the only symptom he ever had was a seizure. And I know you kind of think, oh, well, that's pretty big, but the thing is when you Google seizures or sudden onset of seizures in adults, brain cancer does not come up. And I did a pretty extensive search just because it was such a shock. Our experience started really in July 8th. Jason was at the ballpark with our son, our 8-year-old now. He was 7 at the time. But they were playing baseball. And Jason said that he started getting, this smell and this taste, and he didn't know what was happening. And then the next thing he knew, he woke up in an ambulance. Well, he was told, and, I was told, they called me from the EMTs actually called me. I was at home, and they said that he'd had an 8-minute seizure. I don't know how correct that time is, because that is an extremely long seizure. But obviously, they took him to the ER, and I followed. I went to the ER, of course, and they ran tests. We have a kind of a small town, hospital. It was in Cartersville, ERs they took him to. And they did every test. They did, the blood work. They ran everything but an MRI. They did do a CT. They checked for seizures, heat stroke, regular stroke, different things like that. Nothing came back. They felt, and we kind of felt, that maybe it was just an isolated incident. Seizures can be caused by different things, stress. Being 2020, it was very stressful, of course, for everybody. So I thought that maybe, it was just stress that Jason was dealing with, maybe, and that's what caused him to have a seizure. They, of course, dismissed him. We went home. He seemed fine. He had some more of what we now know were partial or focal seizures. He would get that aura, the smell and the taste, and he would just sit down, and he would just kind of start breathing slow and taking deep breaths. And he thought that he was willing these seizures away and not actually having, drop down convulsing type seizure. That went on for almost 2 weeks, pretty regularly, actually. But we weren't ever concerned about it. We just kind of thought that, like I said, I Googled, I looked it up. Epilepsy can happen at any time, any age. It was a stressful time, kind of financially, job, money, work, and all that kind of stuff. So, I thought that maybe it was just, maybe even that. And, even looked into COVID, could it have been a symptom of COVID? But after, about a week or so, he stopped having those focal partial seizures and kind of went back to normal. He was more tired than he normally was. He was having a hard time getting some work done. He had a small project that he was working on, and he would go out to get his tools ready, and I would get to looking for him or realize that he was at home, and he would be in the basement and been sleeping for a couple hours. So that was definitely, I guess, technically a symptom, just being tired, and the seizures. But he did, I guess, kind of late September, he started having more focal seizures again. There was a particular day there at the end of September that we were on our back patio and he wasn't feeling good. He was going to go to the basement where it was a little cooler. And about halfway there, he's like, I'm getting that smell and getting that taste. And he sat down in the yard and he started vomiting. He just didn't look right. He did not look good. So I'm like, okay, I'm really going to do some research and start, Googling. We kind of laugh a lot because, we talk about having a WebMD doctorate, but when I Google and when I research, I actually don't use WebMD. I go to what I feel are a little bit better sources, but I do a lot of research on anything, but with this, it scared me. So I really did do research on seizures and what could be the cause of them. And like I said, I fact checked just before I made this video to double check that I did not miss something, because seizures never came up, or brain cancer never came up for seizures. That's what I think made it such a shock when we found out, because the fast forward to a couple days on Thursday, I told him when he got sick that day, I was like, something's not right. You're actually having seizures. You're having these partial or focal seizures, and we need to figure this out. We need to know why. So I made him an appointment, and it was actually for the following Monday. But that Thursday, he woke up and he actually slept in, which is unlike him. I actually made him get up out of bed about 2:00 that afternoon, and he comes in the house and he is just, I could tell he just didn't look right. I started asking questions. He was extremely confused. He did not know, he didn't really know anything. He knew who he was, he knew who we were, but he did not know the day, the year, who the president was. And this is 2020. So not only is it a major year as far as with the pandemic and COVID, Donald Trump was president. And so, that's just a lot of controversy. So, and, he would know who the president is. So, anyhow, I was just like, something's not right. We're going to the hospital. And we did, took him to the hospital. And, I guess with his symptoms, the only thing they did was an MRI. And at that time, they seen a tumor. And they seen a tumor, they said it was 2.5 centimeters, which is about the size of a lima bean, they said. So we're talking a tumor, it was about like that. I think it was 2.5 by 2, I think. So, kind of square, but not square. But it's not very big. I mean, something that big, when you're talking about brain cancer, and it was on his right temporal, that was what was causing his seizures, obviously. The doctor came in, he was very compassionate about it, and told us they had a mass. At that time, obviously, they did not do a CT with contrast, but he, knew it was a mass. And being in a small town in Cartersville, they're not equipped with the proper neurosurgeons or neurologists. So he set us up an appointment for that Friday, the next day, with a great neurosurgeon in Atlanta. His name is Dr. El Shahabi, and he is at Legacy Brain and Spine. But we went there that Friday. When Jason woke up the next day, he didn't even remember being at the hospital. He vaguely, I guess, remembered. He's like, did we go to the hospital yesterday? And I said, yeah. And he says, did they say I had a brain tumor? And I said, yeah, baby. And He's like, that's just crazy. And you could tell it just didn't compute, and by that day, we're talking 24 hours later, or less than really, 24 hours later, he couldn't walk straight. He was what they call gating to the left. His tumor was on the right, so that affects the left side of the body. And he, was stumbling. He couldn't walk unassisted by the next day. So that Friday we seen Dr. E, as we call him. And while we were there in the office, they were just doing basic tests, touch your nose, touch my finger kind of thing. And it took him a long time to do that. It was very slow motion, kind of thing. And it was actually Dr. E's assistant who was doing the preliminary test. And she's like, I'm going to go get Dr. E, but we're probably going to admit you because I just don't like how you're responding and how you look. And when she left the room to go get Dr. E, I guess things really hit Jason, and he had a panic attack, which brought on a pretty bad seizure. The panic attack, of course, was just, he just kept saying over and over, I can't die. I can't, I've got kids. I can't leave my kids. I love my kids, and I can't leave you. And, it's very hard to look back and think about that day. But he started seizing. So I ran out into the hallway and got the doctors, and they came in and looked at him, and they called 911 right there. Being in the doctor's office, it's kind of serious when they call 911. And they came and picked him up. And Dr. E was on call actually at Wellstar Cobb, in Cobb County, which is actually, I think, in Austell. But that's where they admitted him, went to the ER. They did a CAT scan then, and by that time, they could actually see the tumor on a CAT scan. Now, you think back to July 8th when he had the seizure, and we went to the Cartersville Hospital and they did the CT. You could not see the tumor then. So from July 8th to, I think it was a Friday, I think it was September 25th. So that's, from that time, it's when they could actually see it on a CT. But they admitted him to the hospital Saturday. They did an MRI with contrast. And because of COVID, I couldn't be at the hospital with him. And the doctor called me with the bad news and said that it was not just the one mass, that it more than likely was glioblastoma. And they could tell that basically by looking, because glioblastoma has very distinctive characteristics of it starts out in a mass and then it fingers out and kind of spiders out into different parts of the brain. So it has little, have a mass, and then it shoots off into different parts of the brain. And that's another thing that makes it so hard to treat, is that they can remove the mass, and they did. That Sunday they removed his mass, but the cancer is still in part of his brain. It's in his thalamus and in his midbrain. And that is not operable. So we are currently in treatment. As most of you know, we are been through the 6 weeks of radiation, and he did his first round of chemo. He's actually supposed to start chemo again tomorrow, January the 8th. But the point of this video really is just to say, if you have a sudden onset of a symptom, really look into it. I don't care if it's an onset of, a sudden headache. Obviously that's usually, they say you've had the worst headache of your life, go to the hospital, because that's usually the symptom for brain cancer. But Jason, to this day, still does not have headaches. He'd never had a headache. You know, he had some pain, of course, after surgery, and he had some eye sensitivity from the tumor because it was right on his right temporal lobe, behind his optic nerves. So his only symptoms was really tired, but that can also be caused by the seizures. But really, the seizures was his symptoms. And when you Google that, brain cancer does not come up. And I just encourage you to be diligent. And this, I have definitely learned, you have to be an advocate for yourself, or in this case, me. I'm Jason's advocate. There's many times that he could have fell through the cracks on different things, and that's a whole nother video that I'll make one day. But you have to be tenacious when it comes to your health. We have been very fortunate and lucked out with some great doctors. But there's plenty of doctors out there that will have an answer already before they truly examine you, or before they really even see you, and based on paperwork. And if you have a gut feeling that something's wrong, make sure you follow into that and check it out. But we appreciate everybody's love and support, and we'll be trying to do a little bit more updates. I've got plenty that I want to talk about. I just honestly haven't even felt like making videos, but wanted to make this one. Felt like it was kind of important to put this out there. So everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.